A friend of mine, Roland Harwood at Nesta, wrote recently about how he saw his job as engineering serendipity, which I think he said with a full sense of the irony of that. And I thought that was a good phrase. It kind of captures the challenge for so many organizations is they look at social networks and they think, well, we could do with some of that spontaneity and that human energy and enthusiasm and passion. How can we make that happen? And end up trying to control the uncontrollable, to engineer spontaneity and serendipity. And at the same time, obviously, no organisation wants to sit there and just go, hey man, well, let's just let it all hang out. We're all trying in some way or other to engineer the spontaneous. I would only say that in doing that, most organisations put far too much effort into the engineering and don't leave enough room for the serendipity. So just as a for instance, I think a lot of organisations looking at social media have a tendency to get tricked into investing lots of money in particular software solutions, which are meant to be all singing, all dancing, and install these fabulous packages and then find that the impact, well, it ends up being what they hope would be this very vigorously populated site of wikis and blogs and what have you, ends up being more like a Western ghost town with the sagebrush rolling through because however clever the tech is, the human beings haven't got very excited about it.
I guess if you try and keep the same sort of command and control structure in place, use the same sort of traditional marketing principles, you're never going to foster the sort of collaborative open culture you'd really look for.
No, I mean, I think what you'll find is that the things that work, that generate the most excitement on blogs and in social media are where people are fighting against that kind of system. There's a resistance to that type of control. Any organisation that goes into social media with that attempt to stay in charge is practically inviting a counter-movement and a rebellion.
At the same time, I think you've quoted to me in the past David Weinberger, I think's remark that the best conversations are those that happen between equals. Do you observe that in the work that you do?
Yes, I mean, I think Weinberg would say that's not intended to be the absolute truth, but I think that if you go down the pub, even early in the evening before the alcohol has really kicked in, you will find that human beings in there seem very capable to organise themselves into very animated conversations about the things that they care about because there's a kind of equality among the people in the pub. You get more animated, passionate conversations in there about last night's football than you might do at a meeting in a company about something that's really, really important, like the future of the pension scheme, for example. And I think it's because hierarchies do tend to have a deadening effect on that kind of social conversation.
That's interesting. Another phrase that you've used in writing and has also come back to haunt a certain Mr. Obama recently is the notion of lipstick on the pig. And I think that perhaps that's maybe the way you see CSR in many of its incarnations.
Yes, I mean, I look at CSR as more or less as just an informed punter. I'm not a CSR expert. I haven't worked on CSR programs. But when I see, for example, Persil or some soap powder company at the moment that's got ads telling me that if I buy their soap powder, they will invest in clean water in Africa, if not exactly that kind of thing. And I look at that and I go, well, that's kind of odd. That seems quite a cumbersome way of me doing something about the water problem in Africa. Wouldn't it be easier for me to just give money direct to the experts who are good at dealing with it and use my soap powder budget for getting the most efficient soap powder? And I think a lot of CSR ends up being perhaps not quite as malign as lipstick on a pig, but a kind of strange bolt-on to the regular business of the company, which one is always led to suspect is just making money with that currency. So I mean, the notion that CSR might shift from being that kind of bolt-on to a process of looking at exactly what your company's real skills are and how they can be best deployed to the benefit of the community, you know, no doubt making a profit on the way, would suggest something really quite different and, to my mind, rather more efficient. I mean, what I like about social media is that if for example, I'm looking for informed commentary on something, I want to get it from the most informed person and not via some incompetent intermediary. It allows us to make much more direct connections to expertises and competences and worldviews that we are aligned with. So maybe social media will make it more efficient for companies to do what I would call CSR with rather more integrity and more deep thought in it and less of that dressing mutton up as lamb.
Looking beyond money as really the only commodity they can trade.
I think that one of the crucial things, if you look at the activity of people who are enthusiastic about social media, if you looked at my my keystrokes every day sitting at my computer when I'm interacting, it would be very hard to say that there was an income stream attached to a lot of them. A lot of what I do online is not motivated just by the immediate need for money, but by my desire for contact with the people who share my enthusiasms and interests. And although I'm probably an early adopter, I'm not untypical of people who are using those social media.
Interesting. I mean, thinking about social communications, where the rubber hits the road for many communications managers is when they're actually forced to engage around a contentious issue. And I wonder how applying a sort of open door conversation approach actually plays out in real life. Have you got any examples?
I mean, one example that comes to mind is Johnson & Johnson, who have shown some enthusiasm for blogging. Their head of PR writes quite a good blog. And some way into that blog, some months after he started it, they found themselves in this situation where, for various reasons, they found themselves suing the Red Cross over the Red Cross, as I understand it, making use of the Red Cross sign in commercial contexts. And there was a long-standing agreement between J&J and the Red Cross about that particular sign and how it could be used, which J&J said the Red Cross were breaking. But however way you cut it, that's just not going to be a great PR story for a company. The headline suing the Red Cross is just not a great way to start a campaign. But because they'd been blogging, they were able at least to have a conversation with the blogosphere, who were likely to be among the strongest people to jump on that, and show a track record of having explored the issue, talk humanly about what it was like to be in this position, how it was not comfortable, that this is what they tried to do, and actually put a plausible, I would say in the right way, vulnerable human being on the front of the communication, and not just be this anonymous collection of lawyers. If they'd just hidden behind press releases in a conventional way, I think they would have just fanned the flames of the hostility they created. By having that blog way of dealing with it, I think they were able to soften the impact. And I use that example because it's not a transformational change. It hasn't totally changed the company. It has simply allowed the company to navigate a little bit more sensibly, and it's the kind of small win, a small shift that I think people who are trying to pioneer this stuff need to be looking for.
But it perhaps does remind us very helpfully that transparency isn't always a threat; it can be an opportunity.
I think it's a threat if you fight against it. I think the world is becoming more transparent. The social media are going to be expanding and getting faster, and people are getting better and better networked and informed whether your company participates or not. So the only question is, are you going to be part of that trend, alert to its dangers, present to its experiences, in touch with what's going on? Or are you going to be living in a half world where you pretend it's not happening? Now that seems to me to be the really dangerous position to take. That's the kind of denial. That's the dangerous place to be.
I agree.